The story begins. The door to the main character room was suddenly thrown open. Interposing his energetic gaming session with a smile on his face, he asked if the moment he was staying for had arrived. He and Suma Cheng headed to the Excellent Period Club, where the current ranking shows them an alternate to last place, but the room was filled with a friendly atmosphere despite the dispassionateness and mockery he entered on. Appearance. The club director is informed that a transfer member, Sun Xiang, would take over as captain and have control of the account of the promoter One Afterlife Leaf. Without being preliminarily notified, the manly lead entered the news calmly, gently lugging on Sun Wiching's sleeve and seesawing with a smile as if formally awaiting it. Also, Sun Xiang, a youthful player genius, sits in the exclusive position of the captain of the Excellent Period platoon, ignoring the promoter, the former holder of the seat, but it's accessible since everyone is a bit distracted by the league's #1 beauty Suma Cheng, who has arrived with the promoter. Still, Sun Xiang becomes the object of adoration of the platoon members and is seen as the unborn leader of the platoon. Still, the platoon director asks the promoter to hand over his account of One Afterlife Leaf. Known as the God of Battle and Glory to Sun Xiang, this account has been an integral part of the promoter for times and is easily a painful crack. The Joker lead's hands are shaking as he hands over his tableware One Afterlife Leaf card to Sun Xiang, who had freely transferred to the club to keep the account, sniggered at the leading man's pulsing hand. Still, Ikkyo shows a hint of pain in his eyes and asks Sun Xiang if he likes the game, advising him not to vapor. Sun Xiang becomes willful and begins to lose his haughtiness. The director informs the promoter that his contract will be as a training mate, but he just laughs and cancels the contract. He has also refused to share in announcements and interviews, which has frustrated his club as his achievements are waning. His value to the club is dwindling. The director tells the star that if he wants to leave the club, he must first advertise his withdrawal. Is angry with this condition, but the promoter is willing to talk about the details of the contract cancellation. Every day was precious to him, but suddenly he's asked to waste a time of his career as a withdrawal forces him to be down for a time, but the promoter just accepts the deal. Her friend Ma Cheng is upset and doesn't understand what she plans to do, but the promoter has a smile on her face. The promoter is being removed from his club, and everyone differently in the conference room started making fun of him. Sun Xiang, who didn't share in the horse laugh, went up to the director and asked how he could have put similar conditions. It turns out that promoter could not pay the fine and his payment was not high enough. The director explained that in the original stages of the alliance, professional players weren't as emotional as they're now, and numerous of them ended up in terrible situations after being fired. The director also gave Sun Xiang a bottle of quaint red wine from his collection to drink him. The promoter, on the other hand, after subscribing some documents, leaves without saying goodbye, but Suma Cheng follows him and tells him that he'd rest for a time and also come back. Suma Cheng did not say much, just nodded his head. The promoter was trying to clear his studies as he walked, but the rainfall wasn't helping him. Snow began to fall and he demanded to seek sanctum. On his way, he set up an internet cafe and ran towards it. There the receptionist assigned her a computer station, but when she got there she set up it, formerly enthralled by an irate woman who was playing an online game. At first regard he allowed it was too important, youthful, but he snappily realized that it wasn't her. The woman was beautiful, but her playing style was scary and energetic. Seeing his game, the promoter was startled and misdoubted whether he wanted to take the station or not, and when the girl turned her head to look at him, the story started to get intriguing. The gamer girl was furious and hit the keyboard, shutting down the game. When Isho misdoubted whether he'd want the station, the girl looked at him and said, "Sit down." The player was veritably disappointed. After successive losses, despite having a strong account and having played for 5 times, she still couldn't beat her opponent. Eventually Chenbo realized that he was dealing with an important player. As he was walking, a frequent client of the internet cafe browsed into his computer and Shenbo realized that he had forgotten to log out. Sure enough, the promoter was playing on his account, but rather of drawing outfit. It sounded like he was eagerly battering in the arena. Suddenly the word glory appeared on the screen and Chengwa didn't have time to cry in wrathfulness, is so shocked that it seems that she saw a ghost. Did you win in lower than a nanosecond? It just cannot be. Chinbu looks at his watch to make sure he's not losing his mind, but yeah, it was surely in lower than a nanosecond. Who could be that mysterious person who defeated his opponent in record time? Shengguat is so agitated that her laugh sounds a bit minotaur. She is willing to do anything for his hand, since there's no bone differently who has the hand of the promoter. But it seems that the promoter indeed forgot his ID card at the event, and Shengguat took it after discovering his true identity. His due interest increased still when the promoter asked about working at the internet cafe. She challenged him to a dogfight in the online game Gloria. The promoter admitted not having an account to contend as he'd given away his important God of Battle account. Was surprised by his liberality, but also realized that he was too important a player to serve. Eventually it came to consummation that tonight was Gloria's anniversary and a new Garkin was about to open. Former player One Autumn Leaf has set up his way to the new Garkin and is determined to play on this new playing field. The promoter is agitated for the occasion to transfer his position account to this new Garkin. Chenghua, her friend, is surprised to find out that the promoter has been playing for nearly times that's further than half of his life. Also, the promoter is willing to work the night shift as a network director, which Manhwa finds surprising. Upon appearance, he sees that the room where he will sleep isn't the most luxurious and veritably fine, but it's clean and tidy, so he's satisfied. Proprietor of the internet cafe Manhwa tells him that in his free time he can play on the computers and to start that same day. Also, he asks if he's willing to work all night. Promoter agrees and Manhwa invites him to a night snack when going out to look for food. The promoter realizes that it's decolorizing. It was night in the internet cafe and all the players were agitated to start a new gaming session. Manhwa turned to the promoter and was surprised to see that he was going through a freshman's companion rather of entering the game. When asked about his experience in the game, it turns out that the promoter had been a professional player, but it ended because he couldn't win a seat in the league. Manhwa tried to cheer him up, telling him that he was times old and if he kept rehearsing he could return to the game. The leading man said that this was what he had planned, and if he ever succeeded, Manhwa might ask him for a hand. Manhwa commentary that he wants the autographs of his two icons Sumechin and Yishio, but Ishio is hard to find. Also, the lead surprises Manhwa by saying that he's actually Ikkyo, but Manhwa also jokingly claims to be Sumechin. Eventually, Manhwa tells the promoter to do some further exploration before making a decision. The promoter begins to review a freshman's companion and realizes that it is veritably introductory and has not been streamlined in times. This leaves him with a sense of shame, as he was formerly considered an in-game encyclopedia. Still, the opening of the alternate Garkin was a disaster because the number of players exceeded the limit, and everyone set from that moment on the limit on the opening of the waiters would be temporarily increased. The opening of the TH Garkin was a success, but entering searches from an NPC was a different problem. They all piled into a pack around the NPC and formed ring after ring, jumping up and down to no mileage. Indeed, the experts were helpless, and the promoter with the stoner named Lord Grimm began to complete simple and educational himself from Zhang's grip as the ultimate carries him to the battleground as anticipated by everyone. On Sungho is the sergeant of Team 1 of the first team, first squadron. The two outfits are standing side by side, and the school teacher calls both of the sergeants ahead. They're both ready to fight and impress the scouts with their capacities. All the scholars of the academy are also ready to see the showdown. The rules are simple. The scholars have been given irons that would break. Formerly, they have entered significant damage if the cuff breaks. The person is out, and when everyone is out, the team loses. But since it was the alternate time versus the third time, effects were made a little easy for them. They had to hold their ground for 5 twinkles and it would be their palm, but it didn't feel like indeed that would be possible. The team of the third time was full of important people. For the alternate time scholars, it would not be possible to defend their home and leader for 5 twinkles. As the alternate times prepare for the battle, Jinsung is being manhandled and handled like a guard, but indeed also he hopes that if his squad wins, the school teacher would consider that he actually has commodity to contribute to the platoon. Just as the match starts, Zhang displays his strategy. It's as simple as it is selfish. He runs down carrying Jinsung and leaves his squad members stranded. They ask him for instructions and he yells at them to cover him. That was all they demanded to do for the coming 5 twinkles, but that's easier said than done. It takes only 2 third times Sungho and a girl named Julie to take out much of the alternate times. They collect the irons painlessly as the girl heads towards Zhang, and Jinsung Giant yells at him to block her attack in any way he could, but Jinsung acts like he has no idea. He tells his team leader that they should run down in contrary directions to confuse the adversary, but also he sees school teacher Young Ho looking at him with a smile. That smile tells Jensen only one thing: he wants him to lose and transfer him away. This irritates him, and he does the unanticipated. He shoves his sergeant to one side, but that was wonderfully timed. As Jimmy misses hitting either one of them, she thinks that it must be in fighting within the group and aims at Jinsung, who's near to her, but he ever dodges her original attack, and she realizes that it was neither in fighting nor a strike that he managed to dodge her earlier. She unleashes her Eddie on an elegant armor covers her body. Jinsung acts like an addict when he sees her Eddie and respects her that it looks stunning and important. She tells him not to play a sharp butai. Jinsung has plans to distract her. He diverts her attention to their team leader, who's running down at full speed, but there are still 3 twinkles left for the match to turn in their favor. He cannot let himself or his sergeant be caught. If he wants to win, he decides to waste time. However, he can manage. He asks the girl if he could call her Nuna or just stick with Sunbai. He also shies down, saying that he wasn't trying to flirt or anything, but she isn't buying into his tricks. She tells him to display his supporter at formerly or she'd fight him in his weakened state. She suppositions that considering the way he could reply to her speed, he'd have a precious idea. He tries to act pathetic and talk about incoherent effects to decelerate her down, but when she takes a step towards him, he gives up and eventually reveals his idea. It is just a dagger that's no bigger than a kitchen cutter. It's F rank and has nothing remarkable. He can tell her. He shows her that it was fully ordinary and not indeed dangerous. That sight gives the girl a headache. She eventually realizes who was the man in front of her. She had been wasting her time with the brute at F rank failure. Her expedients of chancing a good opponent are fractured, and she leaves as Jinsung is reluctantly telling her how he cherishes his dagger. She walks down and Ginseng runs after her, saying that she was the one who wanted to see his supporter in the first place. She tells him to waste someone differently's time. It was just a strike after all. That he could reply to her speed. She was disappointed, but that could be saved for latterly. He follows her indeed after Judy warns him she's being considerate, knowing the difference in their strengths and experience. She indeed gives him a final warning that she would attack him if he kept following her, but just as she turns to give him a scornful look, she finds that he's formerly ready to attack. He'd really snuck up behind her and was going to deliver a blow, but she noticed he'd hoped that she would ignore him, considering how ridiculous he was, but she weighs sincere towards her junior and turned to look at him. She sees the attack and realizes that she can slightly defend herself. It was a good thing that she had her armor on, else the dagger would be fatal and the F-ranked man was coming at her with good instigation. She sidestepped the attack with her arm and was surprised that it made no scrape where it hit. His disturbing verity was revealed to his elderly. He tries to laugh it off, but the bones who actually find it funny are his classmates. Indeed, the girl gets secondary embarrassment from this. She admits that he had good revulsions, but with this useless Adaya he could not do anything. It was better if he stopped trying. Ginseng checks his watch again and finds out that indeed, though he attracted attention and made a fool of himself, he could only stall her for 1 nanosecond. There were still 2 further twinkles, and not numerous of the team members were still active. The girl eventually reaches Bayan Zhang. He curses his teammates for being weaklings, but the girl tells him that at least they weren't recreants like him. He is face to face with a fearsome opponent, and he tries to bluff his way out of the situation. He tells her that she more stay down from him or she'd be lowered. She replies that it would be okay because that would prove his capacities to her. Zhang takes a step back and considers that it was just a stroke of terrible luck, but also commodity happens that makes him change his mind as Bottom touches a gravestone stuck in the ground, and he can tell using his vesture that it's massive. He feels like the tables have turned. Zhang's Adaya's excerpt and swing. He can use anything that was stuck nearly to attack his opponent. The mass of the wedged object that he can control depends on his training, and he felt that the gravestone beneath him was big enough to win. Against the third time, Ginseng has realized what was Zhang's real plan. He wanted to run and hide while chancing commodity suitable to use his Adaya capacities on. They were C rank now, but had the eventuality to come B rank with some training. Ginseng shouts and tries to advise the unknowing Jew about the peril. Giant throws the gemstone with a lot of force. The girl isn't spooked of the giant gemstone coming at her with great speed. She's impressed that a alternate time could pull off a move like that, but just as Zhang is celebrating the impending success of his attack, he finds someone behind him. An Sung Ho sneaked up on him and projected him to the ground before he realized it. Zhang finds it illegal that a third time should use the way only weak were supposed to use. Meanwhile, Julie is having a hard time stopping the gemstone, but Sung Ho interferes and pushes the rock away fluently. She is really angry at his hindrance, but keeps her wrathfulness hidden. It seems that she had issues with Sun Ho trying to jump, and when she was trying to prove herself, she asks him if did he not believe she was able of handling this situation. Sung Ho replies that he trusted her, but it was his duty to take care that his squad members stay safe, and he was sure that Zhang had some further dirty tricks up his sleeve. He uses his I'll surely catch you to catch Giant, who was sneaking behind him with a club. Sonos that I was being rank, and it gave him the capability to catch everything he wanted within his range. He could just underpinning to the position incontinently and not waste a single moment in his conduct. His combat capability was a plus, which was as good as it got. Ginseng notices the power of the man considered to be a monster, and handovers just as he looks at him, but Sung Ho wants to know why he advised an adversary when his team leader was about to attack her. Ginseng tells him that he could not decide what to do and advised her in the heat of the moment, but the answer doesn't move Sung Ho, who uses his Adaya to attack him. He's there without any time passing. He catches Jensen by his collar and his dagger gets tossed into the air. Ginseng tells him to let him explain, but his elderly does not feel to be in the mood for that. But Ginseng isn't what he appears to be. He catches the dagger from an awkward position while being caught by his important elderly and swings it at him. The attack could potentially be so dangerous that indeed the monster Sung Ho is forced to step back. He's indeed more interested in Ginseng now, but Ginseng is interested in installing him for the last nanosecond left. He checks his watch and wishes that time could flow briskly for a bit. If he could last for that long without showing his true strength, that would be ideal for him. But can he manage to defend himself from the strongest student in the academy? Does he really have a retired power beyond his F rank? Adaya, what is that power, and will he show it to the entire academy now? With a dark violet swordlight that made everyone scream out loud, the other 3 players were also ready to attack, but Jisho had other plans, and surely the healer to continue healing so that the adversary's health would drop to lower than %. The cat first attacked on Sleeping Moon, also on Fallen Sun, and also on the 3rd member of the group. Sleeping Moon tried to defend the apprentices he disturbed, but the demon cat was too fast and strong to stop him. Indeed, the promoter tried to heal the mage who was being attacked, but was only suitable to keep him alive for 7 seconds before he was crushed. Sleeping Moon was angry and hopeless, but the promoter had to make a delicate decision to heal fallen son rather of the magician since he'd in fresh capability. Bleed. The result was a sad chain of Otis, and the original group of 5 members was reduced to 4. Sleeping Moon collapsed in a pile of frustration while the Night Demon Cat continued to claw and inflict annihilation. Supposedly the promoter had linked Sleeping Moon's strategy and was allowing of not helping him to save himself amidst all the chaos. Lord Grimm and Sleeping Moon try to work together to master the Night Demon Cat, but effects don't feel to be going as planned. Sleeping Moon is floundering with her capacities, and the Demon Cat scratches her face. Sleeping Moon suddenly saw Lord Grimm sitting under a big tree and tried to cry accelerate up and heal, but in the end there was no response. Also the Night Demon Cat appeared and Sleeping Moon started to fight, but his capability wasn't good enough and he eventually failed. Sleeping Moon was upset and cried, try and cure but stay. A nanosecond the promoter allowed he a life if he only saw blood. Sleeping Moon was beyond angry. Lord Grimm told him that unfortunately his capability wasn't good enough and he demanded to calculate on others to kill the retired Master. Lord Grimm sounded to have seen through their entire plan and Sleeping Moon was in a cold sweat. Could it be that Lord Grimm didn't cure Sleeping Moon and left him to die under the claws of the Night Demon Cat? The pressure is in the air. Sleeping Moon tried to convert Lord Grimm to join forces and partake the particulars, but Lord Grimm wanted for himself. Sleeping Moon was in an inimical position and was forced to negotiate with Lord Grimm. Indeed, though he pledged to take vengeance in the unborn, still Lord Grimm was not interested in what Sleeping Moon allowed and just dropped it. Eventually Lord Grimm faced off against the Night Demon Cat and used his myriad incarnations marquee as a shaft to master him. Shang generally did not stay up late, but since it was the opening of a new Garkin she wanted to see the vitality. Still she fell asleep in her president while hearkening to the sounds of keyboards and mice, but suddenly he noticed that sounds were different and honored that they were coming from the recently hired network director. Isha was surprised to see the promoter's hands, which were extremely beautiful and suitable to move adroitly on the keyboard. It was a pivotal skill in the game the promoter was playing, as it needed high hand speed to control the character and perform complex conduct. Chenggu was impressed by the promoter's chops and began to pay further attention. Your keyboard skill directly influences how your character moves in a game. When she saw the promoter's chops she was pleased. Still, when she suddenly stopped hearing his metrical key tapping she realized that she was occupied in her hands, and just as she was lost and allowed, the promoter killed the fearsome Night Demon Cat and entered the first advertisement from the system as Lord Grimm. Chenggu was surprised and agitated to find out that the promoter had real capacities and could be the first to kill the retired master. After killing the retired master, some particulars from the Night Demon Cat dropped, including a skill book that was veritably precious commodity. Unanticipated happened when the promoter left the game after getting the book. Chengui aphorism in the converse window, a cascade of dispatches criminating Lord Grimm, the main character, of not helping the party members and stealing the retired master for himself. Supposedly there were a lot of spammers and spiteful dispatches on the screen, but the system automatically blocked them. Still, the people set up a way to use the same words to complete their charge. The star indeed saw the name Sleeping Moon among spammers. Chenba was angry and shameless, but the lead sounded to be handling the situation calmly, and this confused her indeed. When asked how he could be so angry without showing it at all, the star only responded with a smile. So he rested in the smoking area while Chengel went to rest. The smoking area sounded to be the perfect place for the promoter to relax and bomb a cigarette. Event set up an open computer at Club Internet. Happy and logged back into the game with his headset on. It seems that life in the game goes on and Chengel will have to stay until hereafter to see how the promoter is doing. Sleeping Moon, an expert player after what happened, wanted to make life miserable for the promoter. As a result, Lord Grimm was unfit to find a group to play with. All their requests were denied, but not all is lost. Not being suitable to team up, Lord Grimm will have advanced leveling speed, and not only that, with his tableware position myriad instantiations marquee, he's original to 3 people. In terms of power, he might indeed be briskly at clearing dungeons than a 5-man platoon, but just as Lord Grimm was starting to enter a dungeon, who had appeared to block his path? Yes, Sleeping Moon